Water is an invaluable resource. It is linked to our environment, our socio-economic development, our climate, our sanitation and health, and our politics. But as a water-stressed country, South Africa is expected to reach a 17% deficit of water by 2030. The country has a history of building dams to address water security needs and to provide essential bulk water supply to its population. However, the construction of dams does come with disadvantages. Dams can disrupt normal surface water and sediment flow, leading to sediment being trapped and unavailable for essential downstream ecosystem functioning. This can lead to erosion and ultimately reduce storage capacity of dams over time. Sedimentation rates in South Africa are extremely high and pose a serious threat alongside increased water demands in the region. When a reservoir is filled with sediments, it affects the reservoir site and community in adverse ways. To assist in addressing these challenges, the South African Department of Water and Sanitation issued a directive to the Water Research Commission to develop the National Siltation Management Strategy for large dams in South Africa. More commonly known as the NatSilt Programme, the program is initiated and funded by the Department of Water and Sanitation through its Infrastructure Build, Operate and Maintenance (IBOM) branch.
Well, our responsibility first is that we need to take responsibility for the 276 government water schemes in the country. That includes 321 state dams, which is the large dams that takes up about the capacity for more than 90% of the total storage capacity that we have in the country in all of those dams. So firstly, it's our assets that we need to manage, and then we also have to operate it and to keep it in the operable state for as long as possible. Some of these dams were built in the early 1900s, even before, and with the lifespan of civil engineering infrastructure that we designed for about 25 years, you can understand as to why we have to apply proper asset management to ensure that we actually increase the lifespan of all of this infrastructure.
Under the custodianship of the DWS and WRC, it'll progress from conceptual and strategic development to full operationalization, including capacity building and training. There will be regular monitoring and adjustment of the strategy.
But what's different with this program as well is that in the first phase is we're doing the research, we do the collation, we're doing the assessment, and kind of working out where could we try this. And the next phase is around piloting some of these models and concepts that we're developing in the current phase. So it's also about bringing together inter and transdisciplinary research and know-how, because as we said, it's the spectrum of the problem is quite wide. So you can't just say we have a technical solution and we know which barge to bring in to dredge and which equipment you need.
Some of the country's dams have experienced up to 90% sedimentation, with storage capacity losses ranging between 10 and 30%. It's a situation that requires urgent attention, continuous surveying, and development of siltation and sedimentation solutions. The key deliverables of the NatSilt Programme are to develop a dam basin siltation management operations model, a sustainable dredging business model or models, a dam basin classification decision-making tool, capacity building, a step-by-step comprehensive implementation plan and piloting of the draft strategy, models and tools. A pilot plan potentially rolled out in 3 government water schemes, namely Valberdach Dam in the Free State, Hazelmere Dam in KwaZulu-Natal, and Darlington Dam or Orangefish GWS in the Eastern Cape. Recommendations related to design, technical and engineering enhancement, environmental management and local economic development will be drafted during Phase 1, tested in Phase 2 and finalized in Phase 3.
Essentially, the program aims to ensure the bulk water resource infrastructure is managed in an efficient, effective and sustainable manner to ensure economic growth, social development and poverty eradication. This is through effective siltation management and related improved storage capacity of South Africa's bulk water resources. The program will provide a package of siltation management solutions as well as an overall strategy. Siltations of dams is a global problem which results in the lost storage capacity as the sediment that accumulates in dams exacerbates water insecurity. With this program, we hope to address some of the water challenges that the country is facing, but also to instill a collaborative approach instead of various institutions and organizations working in silos. There are several options for preventing and managing siltation in our dams. The program aims to provide a package of solutions to address siltation management. Siltation management should not just be a blanket approach for all dams, however, it should be site-specific. In a country where water shortages have caused considerable economic harm in the past decade, the storage capacity that is retained and restored by siltation prevention would go some way to reducing the water deficit. The same siltation prevention would save scarce fiscal resources by extending the life cycle of our existing dams. It is not sustainable to build dams to solve storage capacity loss. However, we need to think of more sustainable ways. So phase 1, which is where we're currently at, will entail developing a strategy for siltation management with relevant tools, models, frameworks, protocols, guides, and plans to assist in the implementation and monitoring, where sub-project 1, 2, and 3 will essentially be part of phase 1. And then we've got phase 2 and 3, where phase 2 will kick off during year 2 of the program, which starts later during the year, and that will run in parallel with closeout of the first phase. Phase 2 will entail piloting of the decision-making tools, operating models, and dredging protocols, as well as the capacity buildings and monitoring and evaluation indicators, where sub-project 4 plays within all 3 of these phases because it's essentially developing the skills programs up until the end of the program. Then we've got phase 3, which is essentially the culmination of the program. It will involve taking the learnings from phase 1 and 2 and revising the strategy and adapting and improving the models and tools based on the interactions we've had with our stakeholders and obviously the pilot phase as well. We encourage synchronization across the sub-projects by ensuring that the sub-project teams share their reports with each other, share innovative ideas amongst each other, and they're up to date with what the progress of each of their deliverables are. We aim to stimulate cross-pollination across the sub-project teams. This is also done through combined workshops we have with all the project teams of the sub-projects.
We didn't want to just look at the dam component of it. We wanted to look at the broader layout of the catchment area and how the sediment dynamics works in that catchment area. So we took a reading of the landscape approach or concept. And that concept basically looks at source, so where the water is actually coming down off the mountains, into the transfer through the rivers and the gullies, and then you got into what is called the sink zone, which is basically the dams. And then you get the downstream to that, which also has sediment impacts and siltation impacts on the ecosystems downstream. So you can see that we didn't want to just look at just focusing on the dams and develop a strategy and implementation plan for that. We wanted to look at the broader scope. So when you're looking at involving stakeholders, you're not just looking at national level, you're looking at national, regional, provincial and local levels. Naturally, the main deliverable is the dam siltation management strategy and implementation planning framework. And that is supplemented by case studies, verification models, pilots, and also looking at monitoring and evaluation and also the risk assessment frameworks. So all of that will be supplemented into the strategy and implementation plan itself. So the main focus of what we are trying to do in terms of the project and the deliverable that needs to be done is that strategy and implementation plan.
Sub-Project 2 of the NatSilt Programme aims to generate and test tools that will enable the alleviation of dam siltation. This will be done through optimized catchment management as well as dam engineering methodologies such as integrating both ecological and built infrastructure and innovations. The sub-project intends to propose an operations model to optimize and enhance dam management plans, processes, procedures, regulation and compliance in order to contribute towards a more efficient and effective siltation management approach in the country.
Sub-project 2 basically involves the development of tools to allow future dam managers to manage their dams. And that incorporates both the development of a classification system as well as an operating model to allow them to make decisions. In terms of stakeholders, we have a lot of universities involved to give their specific and very technical inputs. Main deliverables that we are producing as part of this project are a review of existing literature. So that means that basically looking at the existing data that's out there and then collecting it all and presenting it in a readable form.
We are in phase 2 trying to test some of those interventions because the research produced a number of interventions that could remedy the ecosystem. Now we are trying to test and see how effective those recommendations from phase 1 that could be effective on the ecosystem.
We are managing and controlling erosion as well as siltation into our rivers.
We are also preventing some small rocks coming from the mountains so that they could be stuck here instead of going down.
Since it's a dam siltation project, we've been doing brush packs as our interventions, using sandbags, mulching, stone packing.
Those are the tools that I've mentioned that were able to inform our practical interventions and the reasons why we are doing in terms of controlling and addressing the challenges of siltation and soil erosion from the upper catchments.
Movement of the cattle in one area over and over again, then we end up having a soil erosion. Coming in, they will assist us, helping us to do all the soil erosion correction and grazing camps, obviously, because there's been overgrazed, like I said.
We are planning to introduce grass seeds as well as grass plugs on the sites to increase the vegetation cover in the areas that have been removed of alien plants. This will improve the vegetation cover and reducing the impacts of the rain, and will also assist in trapping the sediment, working together with the brush packs on the different sites. So this is a vegetation quadrants. This is a tool we're going to use to monitor the vegetation cover on our sites once we've started with the replanting of the grass seeds. It's a 1 meter by 1 meter with 100 squares inside. So you use this to measure the percentage of the grass cover on the sites.
So basically 37 out of the 100 blocks has some grass seedlings. So it means 37% of the vegetation within this quadrant is covered with grass.
The vegetation is determined by the catchment. So for each catchment we have different grass seeds mix that we will use in the catchment, because the catchment are quite contrasting. The other one is in KZN, which is quite warmer and humid. The other one is in Free State, which is more dry and very cold. We are currently in the Hazelmere Dam catchment. We are in Umdloti River right now, where we were doing some of our citizen science tools, which are the velocity rod, the clarity tube, as well as the mini SAS. The velocity rod, we use it to measure the depth, the width, as well as the velocity of the river. We use the clarity tube to measure the clear
deepness or the turbidity of the water. It's measured in centimeters. We do the mini-SES to measure the health of the stream using microinvertebrates. We measure the microinvertebrates sensitivity scores, where we add them up and find out the condition of the river, whether it's in very poor condition, modified, or not modified.
So with the results that we're starting to see in phase 2, it gives us a clear indication of what needs to be done in phase 3, which entails us revising and refining the draft strategy into a final strategy and implementation plan, as well as the final models and the skills programs, which we are going to obviously now ready to offer to the broader water sector. Ultimately, the impact that we want to see is the tools being utilized by the water sector being adopted as various tools to be utilized for siltation management, decision making, as well as obviously our skills programs being taken up by the broader water sector and seeing a growth in proficient siltation management professionals.